GingerGM.
Hi everyone, and welcome to my analysis of Game of the Week from the London, or I think it's London based anyway, Summer Chess League. And I've been doing this each week, and this is where I take a look at some games from lower rated players to what I normally look at. So you know, not bad players at all, good players, but people who haven't, should we say, got a title, so they haven't reached FM standard or anything like that. And I try to work out where they make mistakes, which you guys also might sort of do similar mistakes, and we try to improve on that. And I try to give tips of how to avoid these typical mistakes that lower rated players sometimes make. So the game this week is between Paul Stokes with the white pieces and Tony Niccoli, and it's a very interesting game. And I'm going to admit that I don't necessarily know the opening very well in this one, so I'm going to give my thoughts without doing any opening analysis. It's not an opening I'm very aware of, but hopefully what you will notice in the way I'm going to commentate is that the general things I will mention, and maybe the most important concepts, not the individual moves that you know. So for example, even move 3, I don't know what the theory recommends, but I do know some general principles, and these are the things which I think it's much more important for you to learn at home when you're reading a chess book. Learning, don't just memorize the lines. I call it parrot fashion learning. So don't just read a book and go, well, if he goes knight to d5, I have to go bishop to e7. Try to think not in those terms, but think, well, if he goes knight to d5, what is he trying to do? Where is that piece going? What should I be doing? How should I meet that? So it's the W's and how, the things you've got to remember. And then you'll be able to transfer those things you learn into other positions. Let's move on to the game. So the game started e4, e5, and I'm basically a player who generally always plays f4 whenever I get into the King's Gambit, which is maybe not entirely sound, especially anymore, but I rarely play e4. And now white plays knight to c3, the Vienna variation of the rule Lopez, I guess, or e4, e5. And this is very popular at club level and lower down. Maybe I should do more analysis of this. And my figuring of this move is that white wants to play f4, wants to get into a King's Gambit, but just in a more, should we say, developed way, the knight on c3. On the downside of this, if white doesn't play f4, as we see in this game, instead plays knight to f3, then he has to go back into a 4 knights kind of position, or into a rule Lopez position where he hasn't got the main idea of playing c3. And c3 is a very important move in the rule Lopez once you put your knight on f3 and your bishop on b5 or c4. You know, white generally wants to play c3 and d4 in a lot of positions. So you need to really know, if you're playing knight to c3, what you're aiming for. So again, you need to know this with every opening setup you do. What breaks are you trying to achieve? So always know what pawn breaks you're trying to achieve and what middle game plans you're focusing on. Now, black plays what I consider to be a good move here, and that is knight to c6. A symmetrical move, but just waiting to see what white will play. Now, again, I'm not going to look at this with, I'm not going to spend hours looking through the latest theory books. You can do that if you so wish. You might know this better. I'm just going to give you my opinion on what I see. I'm already out of my theory here. I've never played this. I've never had this position. I don't know. As a King's Gambit player, I would be tempted to play f4 here. And, you know, only because it suits the positions that I know. But I expect after e takes f4, it's kind of well known theoretically now that in the King's Gambit, when black captures on f4, it's good for black to have a knight on c6. This is beneficial to black. There's a lot of lines where the knight on c6 can be very good. For example, in the King's Gambit with f4, pawn takes f4. The line I always like to play was bishop to c4 here. Bronstein said that this is the move you should play if you want to win, and knight to f3 is the move you want to play if you want to draw. And this is a move I had a lot of success with against some of the old main lines, but then John Shaw brought out a very good book on the King's Gambit, very well researched, and he proposed the move knight to c6, which not many people know about, but in this position, knight to c6 is a real problem for bishop c4, and here white is struggling to gain equality. I mean, some line I'd be very tempted to play would be f4, and after taking on f4, I would now want to play knight to f3, and here generally, if black doesn't go g5 against knight f3 plans, white should get enough compensation, so g5, and then if I was white, I'd be tempted to play bishop c4, and now my idea is to go h4 and knight g5, trying to attack this square. h4 is a key idea, and after g4, which is clearly critical, I'd be tempted to give up the knight on f3 in very King's Gambit standard fashion with d4. And after black takes on f3, queen takes f3. And I've analysed positions like this in the past. And I mean, the computer will say this is a load of rubbish. So it's kind of one of those things you can probably only play on occasions. But this kind of position can be very dangerous. I mean, I think, you know, queen to h4 check might be good here. But if, for example, knight takes d4, we can do another sacrifice of bishop takes f7 check. And this is very Morphy-esque with the queen coming in. And this kind of position has been analysed a lot. But okay, this is not an opening you could play every game, because at some point you'll get found out. Your opponent will be able to put it on a computer and not play it. This is why I can't play the King's Gambit every game at the level I play. It's impossible. I will lose too many games. And, you know, the computer shows it's rather unsound. But it's fun, but it's unsound. So here, bishop to c4, developing, keeping options open of playing f4. Now bishop c5. And again, I'm assuming if f4 here, black now has to move bishop takes g1. And if rook takes, queen h4 check. And this looks a little bit unpleasant for white because you're going to drop an important pawn somewhere. Again, I would be tempted to go d3 here, keeping my option of f4 available. But, you know, maybe some lines like here I could consider f4 now. I could consider it. But the game instead continued knight to f3. And I have to now say, you know, in this position, we've transposed into kind of a four knights position. But one where white has played bishop to c4 after bishop c5, which is not necessarily the best move. And I might not want my knight on c3 here and this kind of thing. So I might want to go c3 like the Italian game and d4. It's okay though, it's probably about equal. So d6, and now white castles. Knight to f6, both sides developing sensibly. And h3 here. So this is stopping any trouble with here. h6, these are all very okay moves. But the next move, I know is a mistake. It must be a mistake. The one thing I know about the Ruy Lopez, the Italian game, e4, e5s, is that white wants to keep the bishop on c4 alive. This is the best minor piece for white. It's better than the other knights and the bishop on c1. This bishop on c4 can be a great piece later on. And you want to keep that piece. You don't want to allow to exchange it for a knight. So you always have to be watching out for knight to a5 ideas. I mean, knight to a5, in a last move, I can move the bishop back to e2. It's not the end of the world. But here as white, I'll be considering to play either a3 or a4. I know these moves are very common. Maybe I'd put it on. I mean, there's pros and cons with both. a3 controls b4, so I can go b4, stop a piece coming to b4. And the move a4 just gains a bit of space on the king's side, queen's side. I would have thought with a knight on c3, a4 is a better move. Because maybe this pawn can even come up and just, you know, just cause a little bit of problems later on for black. And the point is now, my bishop can always, after something like knight to a5, drop back to a2. I mean, this is what I would figure, but again, this is me not understanding the positions as well as I do some other openings, but knowing the ideas. In the game, d3 was played, and now black played a good move, knight to a5. And I have to say, black played very well in this game. only making a very small error at one stage maybe. And you know, you're going to get equal positions. Maybe this is not the kind of position you enjoy playing all the time, but what you have to do is learn to play all sorts of different positions. You can't just be a tactical hacker in every game. You have to excel at other types of positions as well. And this is more a maneuvering game, but you have to learn from your maneuvers, because you know, you have to be a versatile player. You can't just be a one-trick pony. So now bishop to b3 and a6. So black decides he wants to keep his bishop. Bishop is now given a7. Queen e2. Black now takes on b3. A takes, castles. And now bishop to e3. This is a good move, getting rid of the bishop. Bishop takes e3. And here again, I'm not a fan of white's next move. I think white now plays another small error. It's well known when you have this kind of standoff between the two bishops. So, you know, the bishops are looking at each other like this. You can have it on in this position, or you can have it with a white bishop on c4 and a black bishop on e6. That often the first person to blink, you know, in a Mexican standoff, gives away a little bit, gives away something in the position. I mean, if I was black here, maybe I'd even want to play bishop a7, just stopping the possibility that black gives white. I want to keep the pawn structure the same as black. I mean, because the thing is, after bishop takes e3, if I was white, I would not hesitate in taking with the pawn here. And this is known to be the right way to capture in most scenarios. And the same with black. Black should take on e6. And this is known to be the right way to capture for a number of reasons. Yes, you double your pawns, but often when you double your pawns in the center of the board, that can be a good thing, especially when you have a pawn next to that double pawn, because they can all kind of support each other here. And the pawn on e3 covers two of these squares. The central d4 square could be useful later on, f4 square. And also now you give yourself the open f file. And you give yourself a very easy plan. You should always try to give yourself easy plans to play. Don't overcomplicate things. Easy is good. And for example, let's say black plays a move like c6. If I was white here, I'd play something along the lines of queen f2. I want to go knight to h4 and get my knight around there. Maybe even bring all my pieces over to the king side. And maybe even g4. And use this open f file. So actually, you know, here, I think I actually prefer white. I think black should have gone bishop a7 to stop this. And I don't like queen takes e3. It seems a little bit too dry. You know, you want to try to not, you know, if you're playing in such a dry manner, it seems like, you know, I don't want to be rude to Paul because it's a very normal move. And, you know, I think he's played well to get this bishop e3 move in and stuff. But I think, you know, unbalancing the position with f takes would have been, you know, it would have been a more dynamic way to play. Okay, so now black plays a good move because white may be threatening d4 now. So black plays c5, controlling that square. Not worried about the weakness of this square, because now that white doesn't have a light square bishop, it's harder to ever control this square, because black can always cover this with a bishop as well. Both sides play some good moves. King to h2. Maybe if I was white here again, I mean, in closed positions, and this is closed, you should always look where your pawn breaks are. Where are your pawn breaks? And here, if I was white, I would see that the one pawn break now I can't go d4 is f4. So if I was white, I would have been tempted to go knight to h2, somewhere like this. I mean, maybe actually even a better square is to d2 here. This is probably a much better square, because if I think about the future of this knight, I want to get this knight maybe to d5. I mean, I say this is not a big weakness, but if I can at some point play knight c4, knight e3, knight d5, you know, and put a pawn on f5 to stop bishop e6, I get domination of this central square. So this would be something I'd be planning. Maybe move the knight and try to go f4. Again, I'm looking for active solutions. Always look for the most active solutions, I would say, when you're playing, because active is good. Try to play active chess. So king h2 is all right. King h7, knight g1, and white is trying to play this f4 move, but I don't think he needed to necessarily waste time with these two moves. I'm not sure if the knight is on the best route on g1. Where's the knight going? Because d5 was the square it should have been heading towards, and it's going to take a long time to get it from G1 to D5. And now I really like Black's move. You can see that in this game, active chess wins the game. G5. Pawn moves do create weaknesses, but F5 is quite well controlled here, and I just like this. This shows that, you know, in these positions, the first person to go active, often the brave player gets the win. So I really like the way Tony's played this. I really like this G5 push. Knight E2, Rook G8, getting ready to break with a pawn break. Remember, you've got to look for the pawn breaks with G4. Knight G3, and now Bishop E6 developing, and here I don't know. I mean, it's a tough position for White because now White doesn't have many opportunities. I mean, for example, if I was White here, I might consider Knight D1 with a very long plan of moving my queen, moving my knight, and then trying to get a knight to F5. But this is far too slow. Black can go G4 immediately. And there's even a tactic H4, knight H5 here. And, well, White's on the verge of losing. So it's a tough position. So knight to F5 is understandable. Now, I think Black's next move is maybe the only small mistake that Black makes in an otherwise brilliant game. I think if I was Black here, I'd now take the opportunity to change the structure, and I would have probably taken on F5, just giving myself, an extra pawn in the middle. But it's very important what your next move is, because I think you have to go D5 here. And the point of this is now, well, if White doesn't accept the sacrifice pawn, Black's got a very nice position, this very large centre, which I can slowly move forwards. Queen D6, Rook E8, E4, I'm threatening D4. And after Queen takes E5, now I go Rook E8, the Queen is nearly trapped, and here D4. And this is the kind of position where, again, I think Black played well. He was going for this active G5 move, but you know, you've got to be willing to sacrifice in chess, and you've got to be willing to take that extra risk. And I like this kind of idea for Black. The idea is to force the knight to a very bad square. Where does that knight indeed go? It hasn't got any good squares. And I'm pushing forwards. I'm giving myself some nice squares. Probably going to win that pawn. And this is, I think, what Black should have done. In the game, Queen D7 allows G4. And now White, all credit to Paul's, played a good plan. He has managed to get his knight here, and he's managed to consolidate it. And I think this is good. Paul's done well here. Well done, Paul. Now, bishop takes F5. You can't let that knight sit there. And here again, you've got the opportunity. Do you take towards the centre, which is what you're taught in textbooks, or do you take away from the centre? Have a think about it. What would you do here? Would you take with the G pawn, as you're told to do, or the E pawn? Try to assess the resulting positions and what plans you're going to have after you make the capture you decide. Pause now if you need a bit more time. Well, in the game, White took towards the centre. I don't like this so much for the following reasons. Number one, I'm not sure what White's plan is here, because as soon as I do this move, I don't have any pawn breaks. I can't really break with any of my pawns as White. I don't really have any squares in my pieces. My knight can never go here because it'd just be captured. And it seems like only Black has a plan, and Black's plan is G4. So I'm kind of a bit planless here. But if I had taken with the E pawn, I can now try to do a light square strategy. I still don't have any pawn breaks, but I can try. I have one more square for my knight, the E4 square. And I can try to do some light square strategy, just putting my knight there. And for example, let's say Rook E8, and now knight to E4. And actually here, I mean, maybe I'd even take White now. It's funny how things change, a couple of small errors and things change. And the point is now, well, if you take on E4, White is doing fantastically well, positionally winning after pawn takes, because Black has this backwards D pawn on an open file, and now Black doesn't have any pawn breaks, and White can just gang up on that pawn, and I think White would probably win this game at top level. So I think this move G takes is a very normal way to play, but sometimes you've got to think outside the box and make sure you always have a plan. Make sure you're always the player of the plan. I think this game really shows that the player with the plan, Black, who now plays G4, it's a lot easier to play with a plan, even if it's not always the best plan, but this plan is very good. Try to play actively and play with a plan. This is what you've got to make sure you have. Now, Rook G1, Rook G7, and now I think White misses the opportunity to play F3 here. F3 would have been correct. when it's probably about even here. I'd say it's about an even position, because the black queen and this structure can't get in the game, and you're forcing black to make a decision with his g-pawn. So you're forcing the issue, and sometimes forcing the issue is good rather than allowing your opponent to build up his position, because in the game, after rook g2, rook g8, rook g1, quite funny how everything's ganging up on this file, black now plays a fantastic idea, and I think it's a very clever idea from Tony. Both sides playing very good normal moves, but here black now plays queen d8, and this is a very good move, just trying to get the queen in on the dart squares in a number of variations, and this causes white no end of trouble here. Again, what's black's idea? Maybe black next move wants to, for example, go knight to h5 and bring the queen in. So black is playing active moves, and this is what is giving him the advantage. Now f3 is now played, and black now plays another excellent move. G3 check, sacrificing a pawn. So here black is being brave to get the combination of queen and knight working, which is an incredibly strong combination. Now if the king moves, the knight's going to come in here and the queen's coming in. That would be game over. So you have to take the pawn. And now black's point is he takes, and he goes knight to h5 check. So here, you know, I think, you know, Tony's been more proactive, but Paul hasn't played badly. Paul's played a good game. He's outrated on rating by 20 points. And he's played very well. He's kept things together. One thing to do, when your opponent is starting to get active, do not panic. Maybe time pressure was playing a part here. You're white now. What do you play and why? And I think there's only one way that white can hold an equalish game here. So pause the video now to play in a defensive way for a change. Well, in the game, king g4 was played, which is a move that is a brave move, but, you know, I mean, God, you have to be off your rocker to play that. So all credit to Paul, who may have been enjoying the hospitality at the bar. No, I mean, it's actually not such a crazy move, and I'd be thinking of this. But in actual fact, I think if the king goes to h2 and you keep your cool, let me just try to always tuck your king away where it can't be attacked. This doesn't allow the queen to come in with check. I think white keeps equality, but it's very important to work out. Black now has two moves, knight here or queen in. You've got to have a good answer against both. Against knight f4, if white now simply plays queen to f2, stopping the black queen entering, and knight to e2 is going to try to swap off that dangerous knight next. I like white. So the more dangerous move is queen to h4, and again now you have to defend very well. You're white here. What would you do to defend? Pause the video now to think of the only, I think, way to keep the balance here. White's playing defend. Well, the problem here is, you know, there's a major threat of the queen coming into g3, or in some cases f4. And if you allow that queen to sneak its way in and start grabbing pawns, you're going to be lost. And if you play a move like knight to e2, I'm assuming now you're walking into a very horrendous pin with queen here. And knight to f4 is coming next, and you're going to lose a piece. Queen to e1 is a very important move. The queen dives in. You don't allow your enemy's queen in, especially when you can't move anything. If you try to stop the queen coming to g3, you have to play a move like queen g1. But now the queen comes to f4, and it's going to find its way in again. And I don't like this. So I think what you have to do here is give up a pawn with the move f4. And if you found this move, fantastic defensive move. And I can understand why Paul did not find this over the board. I would not find this move, I don't think. You're offering a pawn to 3 pieces, but you're just trying to stop the opponent's queen coming in. And now something like knight takes queen to g3 is the point. And if pawn takes here, well, we can play queen to f3, I'm assuming. And this now ties up the black queen because we could take the knight on h5. So this is the way that white could defend it, but incredibly hard to see that. The game actually went king g4, and now black repeated the position, maybe just trying to show who's boss, but he didn't need to. And white now has the second chance to go right, but here the knight now comes into the right square, and here, funnily enough, white is absolutely helpless. The black queen is coming in. It's game over. game over here. Or the other way, the queen can come to g8. So you have to try to run away with the king. And now the queen just comes in. King f2. Very good move here. You don't want to take the g2 square for your queen. You want to leave that for the knight. So all you have to do is good calculation here. Queen h4 check. If the king, well, I mean, it's going to be the same thing. King g1, the queen sneaks in with check. King f1, queen h3 check. And now the point of this is that, well, everything's dropping. King e1 falls to knight g2 check. King to g1 falls to queen to g2 mate. And after king to f2, the easiest win, and I'm speaking very slowly because I haven't worked it out. I mean, I can start gobbling pawns. Just wondering if there's a better win than that. I mean, this is winning. Check. And I take on c2. I'm threatening d3. I'm threatening g2. I'm threatening b3. I'm threatening blah, 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 blah. So, all in all, a good game. And I think well played from both players. And it was funny that, you know, I think the key thing there is, you know, just you've got to enclose positions. Try to always have an active plan. Remember your pawn breaks. Try to stop your opponent's pawn breaks. You know, don't go crazy. You can't just go active without a good basis. You've got to, you know, build up your activity. Even just, you know, it doesn't even have to be that active. Just make sure you have a plan. Make sure you have a way to try and improve your position. Don't just sit there. And I like the way that black, you know, played g5. That black played g5. Even though white's still okay here, black is getting the upper hand because he's coming at his opponent. And it's easier to go forwards than not. So always try to push. Always try to be the pusher and not the pushed. Leave your comments below. Now, before I disappear into the wilderness, well, I won't be there too long. Again, I've been talking about this Blitz event that GingerGM's holding. Now, I haven't got around to inviting everyone. I've invited maybe 20 of my friends so far. And there's very limited spaces. But I do want to offer it out to maybe 5 to 10 people that from probably, you know, from YouTube. And, you know, if you've donated large in the past, obviously you're going to get, you know, first invite. You know, if you've been joining up most of my streams, you could well get an invite. But if you're interested in coming to this event, and it's now got some sponsorship, which I'm very happy about, means we're not going to be out of pocket. And you can search for it on, you know, see the event here. And it's only invite only. But if you're interested and you think you may, you know, you desperately want to come and you can make those dates there, the 18th of November, then it's in a crypt and it's going to be a Blitz event. There's only 48 players who are going to be invited and people are going to spectate as well. £1,000 first prize. And you know, I'm really not promising that I'm going to be able to give many invites to you, but if you think you might be interested, give me an email at simon@gingergm.com. Tell me your username on Twitch, tell me your YouTube handle, because obviously I'm only going to invite people who are nice on YouTube and on Twitch, and it's going to be very small invitees. I'm going to try to make a bigger one next time. This is a bit of a test run, this event, and you know, and it is to try and meet some of you guys, to try and meet and greet some of the real loyal people who have supported my streams and my YouTube channel. So I will give out invites to a couple of people soon. I haven't got everyone's email address, so it's quite hard to give out invites. You know, 2 people off the top of my head, and there might be more. I've got to go through my streams and check. But remember, is Morton, and oh my words, I'm forgetting names here. Can't remember. Oh, don't put I can't remember names. You know how bad I am names. But what I would say, please do email me, and please do tell me your handle on Twitch and on YouTube, and then I'll give out invites. And remember, it's only an invite event. There'll be some grandmasters playing in it. It's going to be a lot of fun, but you have to get an invite to come. And hopefully, if it's a success, there'll be many more of them in the future. Because you know, I'd love to meet some of you guys who help me out and follow this channel. It's just hard to make these things work. You know, I wish I had a bigger venue in London, but 48 is nothing. You know, 48 capacity is really so little, especially as, you know, I want to invite people who've helped out GingerGM, like the presenters, people behind the scenes as well, so, and some GMs and some friends. But I do want to get at least a couple of you guys to come along, you know, so give me an email. Okay, well, thank you very much for watching this video. Maybe it helped, maybe it didn't, who knows, I hope so. Please do like and please do subscribe to my channel. Again, there's great ways to help me out. Cheers, goodbye for now.